So I love that your gym just has this class, for, pregnancy and for postpartum, just to even just bring awareness around the fact that you just birthed a child. You just slow down a little bit, do it right, and then you'll be able to lift these heavy weights. You'll be able to, go for those runs that you want to go for. Hi guys, I'm your host Megan Van Diepender, and this is the Empowerhood podcast. I am so happy to have you here. Motherhood is hard, and we are going to talk about all of the hard things that just are not talked about enough. So buckle up and enjoy this episode. All right, cool. So hi Nora, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, Meg. How's it going?
Good. I missed our training session yesterday.
I know. I missed you.
It's only 2 weeks.
I know.
Back.
It's a means to an end. You got big things coming up, so it's good.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this. So everyone out there listening today, we have Nora Matthew here, and she is a trainer and coach and owns her own women's gym. We're going to talk a little bit about prioritizing workouts, how to get rid of excuses to not work out, and also the benefits of strength training postpartum. So Nora, why don't you start it off by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about you?
Yeah, so I have been in the fitness industry in some capacity since 2009. I got my training certification in college, and I was a D1 athlete, and then I went into club sports and played rugby, and I've always just loved being in the gym and feeling strong, feeling athletic. And so going into training was kind of a natural thing for me. It was where I felt good and confident. And over the years, I've definitely worked with a lot of different types of people, and I've found really a true love in working with women, particularly women who are pregnant, postpartum, may have grown-up children, but that's definitely my specialty. So I opened my business in 2018. So that was just over 5 years ago, opened my brick and mortar space. And then we just recently, just this month, moved into a much larger space. So we're in about 4,000 square feet in a lovely central location in upstate New York. And we specialize in small group and private training. I am personally, I'm a Strong First Elite instructor, which means that I currently hold all of the Strong First certifications. So Strong First is a very well-respected strength training organization. It's a certifying body, and it's unique in the sense of you have to do and teach in order to get certified. So I'm certified through the modalities of kettlebells, barbells, and body weight. So that is my love and my specialty. I dabble in other types of training as well, but strength training is definitely where I've seen the most sustainable results with my body and with the bodies of my clients, regardless of what their background is. And so, it's great. I have 4 little boys. They range in ages from 2 to 10. So very busy at home otherwise. So, that's my life in a nutshell.
Okay. Now you didn't start off with fitness though, right out of college, right? So what did you start with, and how did you end up, opening a gym?
Yeah. So, when I was in college, I actually worked in our fitness center. It was a beautiful new fitness center, at Providence College. And, so because I was working there, we were hosting a trainer certification. And so I took the certification, studied for the exam, passed the exam. So it was kind of almost like a side gig for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was studying theology, and, I went on to graduate school, and studied secondary education in Scotland. And so I was a teacher there for 2 years. And after I had my first baby, I really felt I don't want to be teaching other people's children instead of being with my own. So I felt like I needed something that was a little bit more flexible. I didn't want to be gone from 7 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon from my son. And at that time we were working in a school that was 30 minutes away from our house. So anyway, it was complicated. And I kind of returned to training after a couple of years off, and just really kind of fell in love with I guess like the people side of training. Like I love building relationships. I love people. I love helping people to thrive. So this is kind of like where I've found my home.
Okay. Well, since we're talking about, what you do at your gym and like what you're certified in, I guess I'll start with this. Why strength training for women? I mean, I know you started as a sprinter, right, in college. So what made you go from, track to, strength training?
It's so funny because like with so on the track team, so I walked on to the track team at Providence, and they had a very good team. Mostly the distance runners were like really, really good. And I found that, so we weren't like super competitive when it came to going to meets, because like the other D1 sprinters were just like ridiculous. They were like super strong and tall, and just like I couldn't compete at that level. But what I really loved about running track was the strength and conditioning program that we got alongside of that. So like, again, being a Division I school, like Providence had an incredible strength and conditioning program. I'll never forget my coach, Kenneth White. He was my strength and conditioning coach, he was just like such a cool guy. And he was very much like, follow these guidelines and like do what I tell you to do, and like you're going to be strong. And I loved the feeling in myself of getting stronger and actually seeing progress. Like I remember vividly getting my first chin up and just thinking that was like the coolest thing. And I always wanted to get better and do more in the weight room. And so when it came down to it, between like running and lifting, I was like, I just really love being strong. So when I left the track team, I continued to lift in the gym, and just like kept getting stronger and kept looking into different things. So I think for me, like I always felt confident in my body when I felt strong and resilient, like, like a swift wind wouldn't like blow me over. And I always felt like that was great as far as like injury prevention and rehab too. Like when I played rugby, I would get, kind of knocked around on the pitch, and lifting and feeling strong definitely helped a lot with that. So I think, generally speaking, like strength training for women is 100%, in my opinion, the most sustainable like way of moving over time. So I mean, you can literally start from when you're like very young to when you're in your 80s for strength training. And as far as sustainability goes, I mean, sort of like if you come up with this routine of working out, you could lift, in theory, you could lift like 5 or 6 days a week. But it's something that you can repeat without fatiguing. You can do it without overstressing your body. And not to mention the fact that there's like a million benefits for women being strong, including bone density. We're 60% more likely to have osteoporosis than men. And it's also amazing for your insulin sensitivity. Muscle is the most insulin sensitive tissue in the body. And so when we're talking about kind of like overall health and blood sugar regulation, which obviously we know plays like a deep role in our metabolic health, lifting and being really strong is a huge factor in that. So,
really cool.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of it is like resilience. So not only like physical resilience, but like mental, emotional resilience, and knowing that you can do hard things as well.
Yeah, I was going to say the confidence aspect of it. I feel like, mentally just being able to lift something really heavy is super empowering. I mean, obviously we walk around all day lifting heavy children and stuff, but you don't think of it that way. So when you pick up a barbell or something, it's like, it's really empowering. That's cool. So postpartum. So pelvic floor health, dystasis recti, all of these things. Do strength training help these things?
Yeah, immensely. I mean, I think what we generally recommend, so we have our pregnancy and postpartum programs here at Her Strength. And for postpartum, like there's a lot that goes to it, right? Like postpartum can be such a complicated time in a woman's life. And, whether it's your first baby or your fifth baby, it's like you can totally be thrown for a loop. Like you don't necessarily even recognize the body that you're in. So, that postpartum time can be like very jarring mentally, emotionally, physically for women. And so I think that being able to come back to a workout routine that, again, is sustainable and something that makes you feel good is like really important. So, for me, like I know in my journey with my first baby, he was very big. He was 9.5 pounds. just for reference, I'm 5'4" and like normally like 120 pounds. So my baby was huge and he was like a little bit late. It was 5 days overdue. And like I have a short torso. So like my stomach was huge. And so postpartum, I remember like I went to Pilates. I had done Pilates through my pregnancy and I went back to Pilates postpartum. And I remember my Pilates teacher, I was doing some sort of versions of like hundreds. And I like looked down and I was like, oh my God, like what is that doming happening in my stomach? Like I had this like tenting and I was like, holy moly, what is that? So I said something to my Pilates teacher and she's like, oh yes. Okay. Keep your head down and like, we'll talk about it after. I'm like, okay. So she explained to me what this was. So this is like way back in 2013. I had no idea what it was. And at that point, like there was so much conflicting information online about like how to fix that.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward to after I had my second baby, I went to go see a pelvic floor physical therapist. And she was helpful in the sense of like pelvic floor. At that point too, I had pelvic organ prolapse, which is also something that is like very common postpartum. And I knew that something wasn't right, and I couldn't quite figure it out. So I went to go get assessed, and she was like, "Yep, you have prolapse and you have diastasis." And I was like, "I'm a wreck. Like, what am I gonna do? You know, this is someone who like I was an athlete my
You're
whole
an
life.
athlete, yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, how am I ever gonna love my body or trust my body again after like." You know, I feel broken.
Or heal it. Yeah, it's more like, what's your healing journey?
Exactly. So I did my best really to listen to the pelvic floor PT in the sense of like, she was like, okay, I want you to do this and this exercise every single day. Come back and see me, you know, a few times. And then, and it's funny because like fast forward to, she was like, I don't want you to lift any heavy weights until like your diastasis is closed. And I was like, in that moment, I thought to myself, like, that's like, it's like moving the goalpost to a distance that I couldn't even conceive because it was so far away. I'm like, I don't even know when that could be. Like that could be 3 months from now. It could be 6 months from now. It could be years from now. How could I never go back to lifting weights? Because like, again, that's where I wanted to be. So it's very funny. Like I thought to myself, there has to be more to this story than just like doing floor exercises and like breathing stuff. You know, there has to be another way to progress it. And sure enough, fast forward to like, I found kettlebells shortly after I had my second baby. And I was like, oh, this is so challenging on so many levels. And I'm so aware of my core and my pelvic floor muscles. And it truly did push my recovery down like to that next level. Like I think because, and thinking back on it, you know, after my diastasis got better, my prolapse was asymptomatic, like no problems. I thought back about it, I'm like, yeah, because I was loading the tissues. I was actually working the muscles and I was encouraging it to heal and go into the next level. So yes, it is important to start at that ground level where you're doing the breathing, you're doing the little tiny exercises, you're trying to engage your deep core. But in order to really take that to the next level and encourage your body to heal, to respond, to get stronger, you do have to increase the stimulus. So, you know, lifting weights was the stimulus that helped me to heal ultimately. So it's, you know, and it's definitely held true for hundreds of women that I've seen postpartum.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's Sarah Duvall, you know her. She's great. I've taken like a bunch of her classes. I would love to have her on here to talk about, you know, core and diastasis recti and stuff like that. But she's like, it's not about the lifting the weights, it's about how you're managing the pressure, so you're not putting that pressure down on your pelvic floor, you know, and your DR. So you need to still be able to strengthen those muscles, but you just have to manage your breathing and the pressure that you're pushing down.
And like you said, you know, we're lifting kids all day long. We're lifting groceries. We're moving boxes. We're doing physical things in our lives. And to say that, you know, that we can't do those things until we've, you know, completely healed this or that is like, it's naive and it, you know, at very best. And it can be very limiting, I think, mentally for a lot of women because again, and this kind of goes into another rabbit hole, but we're very trained to listen to anyone medical and, you know, that's like giving us some sort of advice. And we're like, we want to trust people who have that knowledge base and which is like totally valid. But at the same time, you also have to like live in your own body and like actually, you know, give yourself a little bit of credit for, you know, trusting your own instincts. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love that your gym like brings awareness to like postpartum recovery, that it's not just like, oh, it's 6 weeks and all right, you're cleared by the doctor, because
Yeah.
we know that a lot of doctors don't even check for diastasis recti,
No,
or they don't check your pelvic floor to see like if you
no,
should
they
be
don't.
running or doing. They're just like, okay, yeah, I think you're good. I mean, I was lucky that my midwife did bring to my awareness that I had ab separation. Otherwise I would have never even known because I knew nothing about it. So I love that your gym just has this class, for, pregnancy and for postpartum, just to even just bring awareness around the fact that you just birthed a child, you just slow down a little bit, do it right, and then you'll be able to lift these heavy weights. You'll be able to, go for those runs that you want to go for. And I just think it's so important because I don't think the awareness is out there. I mean, of course, there's other women's gyms and stuff like that all over the world. I just think more people should start bringing awareness to that because I don't know how many women come to me and are like, I got injured, and I'm like, well, did you check for diastasis recti? And they'll be like on disability because they lift heavy things at work and they weren't using the correct muscles because of their recovery never happened. They just went right back to doing what they did before and it wasn't using the correct muscles and they didn't have that strength.
Yeah, I mean, we see it a lot, and I think it is on some level that you're trying to cling to, or I guess like rediscover some sort of like normalcy and control in your life because I think there's probably for a lot of women like no more out of control feeling than being pregnant, like growing this completely a separate human and then giving birth and then feeling like you don't recognize your body, right? So I think that return to exercise, like once you're given the green light by, your doctor or your midwife or whatever, you're like, okay, great. I can get back to who I was. And unfortunately, again, I think it's that sense, this like crazy overall message of like, yeah, you can get right back to what you were doing because you had a baby 6 weeks ago. It's like you literally took 9 months to grow this baby and give yourself a little bit of credit. Your body might be like a little bit depleted for a while. And so treating it as such and having that respect for yourself to really like take those baby steps first and seek the guidance of people who do understand and have been there, rather than like jumping back into routine. It's just, it is definitely hard. It's very challenging. I think mentally, I mean, I have 4 kids and every single recovery was like a mind F. Like
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know how I'm ever going to get back to where I was. And yet here I am back where I was. And actually I'm stronger now than I ever was before any of my kids because I trained smarter. But it's like, when you're in it, you're just like stuck and you have this like tunnel vision. You're like, well, I want to get back to here. So I have to do this first. And so for a lot of people and especially a lot of women, movement exercise is like for mental health, which is very important. But if you get hurt and you can't do it at all, then it's counterproductive, right? So it's just kind of like put it into perspective and saying like this needs to come first before that.
Right. That's why I love that you have that program and they can bring their child too, because it's like they at least still get out of the house, they get that like social interaction, they're still moving their body. It might not be how they want to move their body, because everyone just wants to go, me included. But it's something, it's something to give them to do and really help their mental health. I think that's great. Sure. So personally, Nora, I mean, so you have 4 kids, you're a coach, you own a business. How do you fit in your workouts? Like, how do you prioritize them?
So, I mean, I've definitely been guilty of like not prioritizing them. Like when we moved from our old location to our new location, the like last 2 months we were in our old location, there was just such a long list of things on my, to-do list that I was like, I can't work out. And so it was like piecemeal here and there. But truthfully, like if I schedule my workouts, that's the only way that I'm able to do them on a regular basis. There's been times in the past where I've definitely seen the benefit of trying to do something every day. 100% like being on a program is important. Like working with a coach, doing a program that you enjoy and that you look forward to, something that has some sort of organization and goal at the end of it is like also super important, just being able to have that structure so that you're not just like, okay, I have half an hour to work out. And then you're like, okay, what do I do? and then you just have to pick random things.
Right.
So it's not that the random things are going to be bad, but also like, again, most of us are busy. We have to maximize our time. So I know for me, as long as I have like 45 to 60 minutes in the middle of my day somewhere to work out, I know that I will. So I've been blocking off my schedule to do that. And it's honestly like the only way that it gets done. And it's so funny because I think everyone thinks I just like work out all day.
It's all the videos and stuff.
I like longingly like look at the barbells during my day, and I'm like, I wish that I could lift, I'm literally booked some days from like 5 in the morning until like 3 in the afternoon. And then I'm like so exhausted. There's no chance I'm going to do anything productive, exercise wise. So yeah, so I have to block out the time. I have to have a plan. I have to know what I'm going to do when that time arrives. And so like, that's, I think what I love about kettlebells. And that's why I fell in love with kettlebells a few years ago, is because you can get in like a very good, efficient, and like hard, challenging workout in like less than half an hour if you have, that time. And, and you're still going to continue to make progress, even if you don't have that whole hour to do your workout or however long it takes you. And it also puts your strength and your cardio into one session. Okay. So, just like finding the right tools, when you're like in the moment, knowing what you're going to do
to like save you time.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think a plan and a program is always super helpful, even if you're doing just like home workouts or, going to a gym and having a trainer. I mean, as long as you know what you're going to do, you can kind of, even if you don't have a set time, if you do see a half an hour, you're like, oh, I already have this planned, I can bust this out, real quick. Exactly. I do think it's important to set a time though for yourself, right? I mean, or whether it be your workout or not, set some time aside to like prioritize, your health for sure. And definitely, if you have to put it in your calendar and set a reminder,
I mean, I think the thing is too, like in the past I thought, okay, I need to do like 4 days. And then, I was like, well, maybe I should do like something every day, just to, like work it in case I like, don't have time tomorrow or whatever. But I think honestly, it's like, it's also giving yourself the permission and the grace to know that if you miss a day, like it's not the end of the world. It's the consistency. It's not the frequency. So like if you get 2 workouts in per week for a month, it's better than you doing like 5 workouts in 1 week and then nothing for the next week and a half and then 5 workouts again. So it really is just showing up and just, looking for that progression.
Yeah. I think also like, I mean, when I talk to my clients, I'm like, just be realistic about it too. Because if you say you're going to work out 7 days a week, that's not realistic. Start with like 2 or 3, see how it goes. And then when you feel good to add another one, add another day, like gradually, because then you're not going to like disappoint yourself, if you don't show up those 7 days.
For sure. And then I think a lot of times what happens is like when you do kind of, when you set that goal and then you don't achieve it and then, you're sitting at a deficit, you're like, well, I don't really want to do it tomorrow either. And then I can tell you like it's months and months down the line that people find themselves like, well, I've been sedentary now for 2 years because I didn't want to come back to like, because I knew it was going to be so hard. And it's like, oh my gosh, like if you totally fall out of that routine, it's 10 times harder to get back into it than like if you set your routine, you do something, even if you literally go outside for like a brisk walk for 20.
I was going to say a walk can be a workout, that's
usually
movement. Yeah.
Exactly. Even just getting that like, zone 2 cardio where you're not like dying, but you're also not, you're not out for a leisurely stroll. If you get something in the middle, like that's hugely helpful for so many things, including like, weight management, including stress management, obviously great for your cardiovascular system. So it doesn't need to be super complicated and hard. You don't need to be doing 100 burpees every day to like get a good workout in.
Right. For sure. I was listening to something the other day. I can't remember what podcast it was, but this girl was like an elite athlete and she was like, some days, I don't want to work out. And she's like, I give myself 1 minute. I'm like, if you can work out for 1 minute today, that's it. And she's like, try doing it for 1 minute. And it's like, whenever you start doing something for 1 minute or you're like, I'm going to run for 30 seconds, you're not just going to stop. Your body's going to like that adrenaline and then you're going to keep going. So if you're having trouble, getting motivated, just show up for 1 minute and try it and see if it works. And even honestly, 1 minute's better than nothing, right? So even if you do end up not continuing on after 1 minute, which you probably will, you'll be like, oh, well, I can do 1 more minute after this 1 minute. You're going to keep going. And like I said, I mean, 1 minute of walking is better than no walking at all. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's very true.
I liked that tip because I do think that's true. You know, we all have days where we don't feel motivated, right? I mean, no
Oh,
one's perfect. But as soon as you start moving or as soon as you start lifting weights or whatever you're going to do, you usually feel better, right? Even like a couple minutes of it. You're like, all right, this is great. I feel great. And then after your workout, you feel amazing and it was worth it. You know, it
exactly.
brings like such a great vibe to your day for sure.
Yeah.
Now, why do you think it's even more important as parents, like as moms, to work out like in front of your children?
Oh my gosh, like so many reasons. I mean, I think number one is like your kids are like they're like your little followers, right? They're gonna do what they see you doing most, and so whether you're like swearing at someone in the car that just cut you off, or whether you're working out every day, like they're gonna do it, right? Like we know that they're gonna do it. So I think that's really important. But I also think it's important for kids to see parents prioritizing themselves, because I think there's something to be said about like a good example is like my mom. I know that she put her kids first no matter what, like what as we were growing up. And I think that she kind of fell down on taking care of herself for a very long time because she was very much focused on us. And and I always think about that, and like I'm very grateful to her, but I think that if she had prioritized herself a little bit more in the moment, I never would have faulted her for that. So I think, and I think also for most people, we have kids and we're working and we're doing a million and a half different things. We're carting them around different sports and activities and whatever. And then for a child to not see the parent doing something for themselves, I think that's problematic, like over time. Again, and I think, some kids are probably more aware of it and they get a little bit more aware as they get a little bit older. But I think, as a busy parent, as a stressed parent, I think that you probably resent, things less, the stress, you resent it less if you actually do have that time set aside for yourself. And I mean, not to mention the fact that like there was like some study done, and like I think it was like some sort of like American Pediatric Association. I think it must have been like a catalog or recently that said like a mother's activity level is like directly related to like their
I think I
activity
saw
level.
that on a reel, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and so it's like, I mean, and it seems like kind of like really, like, yeah, that's obvious. Like obviously, like an active person's gonna have active children in most cases. But if you think about what that actually means, and like, I know that my kids, when they come in here, like they want to climb on the monkey bars. They want to, when they want to play on the TRX, they want to lift the kettlebells. And it's setting up that like that mindset for them that like, this is something that is beneficial for you, versus sitting down and playing a video game for like 3 hours, so, but yeah, so I think it's like, it's multifaceted for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, just think like setting that example, because they really they're watching our every move, and you can talk all you want, but they're going to notice you doing it way more than, actions over words type of thing.
100%.
I also think like our parents are probably around the same age, but like same thing went with my mom, when we were younger. I think it must just be like that generation. But just like full self-sacrifice, like didn't do anything for themselves. And I mean, we all freak out at parents, as parents at times, but like I remember my mom losing it like so many times just because she was so depleted, and she didn't have any hobbies or nothing for herself besides us four kids. And growing up with that, when I became a mom, I thought like that's what it was, right? And I had to like really find that for myself, that like, I mean, my husband was like, you need to find a hobby. Like, why would Gray want hobbies, if you don't have a hobby? You know what I mean? Like, when she was really little. And I was like, you're right. Like,
yeah.
Why would she want to go do, or like, even why would she want to do anything if I don't do it? Like, if we're not showing them, it's like a parent being like, eat your broccoli, and they're over there eating McDonald's. It's like, why would your child eat their broccoli if you're going to eat McDonald's? So I think it just goes like the same for all of that. Like, if we're not representing that as a human being and like showing that matters, then the kid isn't going to grow up to take care of themselves, or or they're going to have to find it out the hard way, like I did. When I grew up, I had to like literally redefine myself, because I was like, I don't want my child to be this self-sacrificing people pleaser, so it's like you really have to like think about it and kind of become like self-aware
Yeah,
about it.
it's so true. It's so true. I mean, I think sometimes about like even just something as simple as like you're at work all day, you're there from 9 to 5 or whatever. You come home, you make dinner, and you crash on the couch and you just watch TV for the rest of the night. It's like your kids seeing that,
Hmm.
and like they're definitely gonna want to do that same thing. So if you live that sedentary lifestyle where like you just are so depleted or exhausted
Hmm.
that you just have nothing to give. At the end of the day or at the beginning of the day, like that's a problem. So and as much as people don't want to hear this, you need to reprioritize. You need to change your
Hmm.
lifestyle if you actually expect your kid to, to have anything different than you. Because so many times I've seen history repeating itself, and it's like you have to step up and be that example for your kid, even if at that moment like you don't feel like doing it.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, I feel like it's what our society portrays as being normal. So it's just like, especially in movies or TV shows, that's what the parents are doing, right? They're exhausted, they're frazzled, they don't really want to spend time with their kids.
Yep.
Or like just the lifestyle or the pattern of, coming home and just binging on Netflix all night and like not doing anything. I mean, it's what life is, right? It's just what the society is right now. And to someone asked me the other day, like, what's your favorite movie? And I was like, I don't know. I don't watch TV. Like, I don't know. I literally don't watch TV. I'm like that person that lives in a bubble, but I don't care. Like, I just don't do that. I'd rather do other things. I'd rather be outside. I'd rather be,
Yeah.
educating myself. I don't know. I just like, or playing with my kid. I don't know. I don't do that. But I mean, that's everyone's choice, and they have to find their own way to that, and to be able to set the example that they really want for themselves, for their
Yeah.
children to become. And it's definitely like a mindset that you got to figure out for yourself and really decide like what you want for your values and for your
Yeah.
family, for
Yeah.
sure.
Exactly.
So what advice can you give to women out there, pregnant, postpartum, you know, all over the world or all over the US? Like, should they find a kettlebell studio, or like, what would you recommend?
It's hard because like I think there's a lot of um there's a lot of contrasting like information out there. I think the biggest thing is like for me, what I've seen the most benefit from is like really prioritizing getting strong. If you have not had children yet and you plan to have children, get as strong as you can, before you get pregnant. If you're pregnant right now and you like have never strength trained, you can strength train. You can lift weights. The like guidelines from years and years ago about don't start anything new when you're pregnant, like it's
Mm.
complete nonsense when it comes to strength training. You are far more resilient than that. Obviously, like barring any contraindications, but like the 99% of women can lift during pregnancy if they have not lifted before. Doesn't have to be super heavy. In fact, that's the beauty of like if you've never lifted before, the stimulus doesn't need to be that high in order for your body to adapt. I think so. Getting as strong as possible would be number one. I think number two is also to try to find a pelvic floor physical therapist to support that journey. A lot of times, like because like hit like high intensity interval training is very popular these days, what I'm seeing a lot of and what I've seen a lot of for years is when women just do hit or they do things like bar where like it's like very dance based and like very like stuck in your stomach all the time. What happens unfortunately is they end up getting a pelvic floor that is overactive, and also like this long lines of like the kind of general like baseline of stress is like a lot of women hold stress in the pelvic floor. And so instead of the pelvic floor being weak and underworked, it's actually overworked and overengaged, which is like just as bad for function. And so working with a pelvic floor PT to figure out if you can, in fact, engage and relax your pelvic floor muscles, that goes a very long way in having a good pregnancy and a great birth experience and a great recovery postpartum. And like I can tell you this, like from personal experience, I was doing CrossFit when I got pregnant with my first baby, and I was lifting heavy. I was probably deadlifting over 200 pounds. I was squatting like 150. I was strong, and I did not understand how to manage pressure. And so I held my breath a lot when I was like under stress, which is like our knee jerk reaction. That's what our nervous system does for most people. And because of that, I know that my first labor was very long. My pelvic floor was way overactive. He was staying up high and he couldn't like descend down. Every time he would descend down, he would like go back up again. Anyway, hindsight is 2020. And so I know that like looking back, I wish that I had worked with a pelvic floor PT like during my pregnancy so that I could prepare to understand the mechanics of the pelvic floor because we just have no reference point. Like
Yeah.
we can't
No
know if
idea. No
pelvic
idea.
floor.
We don't know anything about it. We're like, oh, it's easy.
No.
It's like normal to pee your pants. Like
Yeah.
that's what
And
life is.
and also like women think that like getting getting a strong pelvic floor means just doing like 100 Kegels. And then
Mm-hmm.
that's also like literal advice that I've heard OBGYNs give. And it's like, oh my God, that's like the
Mm-hmm.
opposite of
That's what
most
my midwife told me for sure.
and you're like, oh
I
my
feel
God,
like they should just refer everyone out. Like as soon as you're postpartum, just be
yes,
like, all right, here is a PT to go to that specializes in pelvic
yes,
floor. Head that way.
yes,
That's it.
yes.
That's all they have to do.
Yeah,
Give
and
us a
you know,
name.
establishing I find that like what's most helpful is like establishing that relationship with the pelvic floor PT during pregnancy. Depending on what state you're in, they can still do like some internal assessments during pregnancy. Most states just like recommend that the PT gets clearance from your OB or your midwife, like in order to do internal PT.
Okay.
But like if you're having sex, it's like the same thing. So anyway, so like basically, you know, if you establish that relationship during pregnancy and then postpartum, you can go back to them immediately. So you go back to them, you know, between 4 and 6 weeks postpartum, depending on how you're feeling. And then you can immediately start that like postpartum rehab. I
Mm-hmm.
can tell you that truly that is the secret to having like a great pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and then being able to, if you want to, have more children after that. Because like once your pelvic floor is like destroyed, it's really hard. And like this is
Yeah.
coming from someone who was there. Like I get it.
Yeah.
It was really hard to come back from that deficit. And thank God that I found like good resources for that. But I find that most areas in the US, in the UK, like all over Europe, do have access to pelvic floor PTs. Like I know in this area, we went from having like less than 10 to having like over
Yeah.
50.
There's a lot. I feel like that's just kind of blown up recently, which is so good.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know, thank God, thank God.
Yeah.
So, like, they're an incredible resource, and, like, that is what they do, like, they do pelvic floor muscles, that it's such a
Mm-hmm.
specialty, and they can also help with diastasis,
Yeah.
recovery too, and, like and they can help with C-section, scar massage if you have a C-section,
Mm-hmm.
and that's immensely valuable too, like, having someone like that, that is educated to be such an excellent resource for you is just, like, so invaluable.
Yeah.
So that would definitely be like, you know, get strong, find a pelvic floor PT, and just like stay consistent showing up for yourself.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Best way to not make excuses for your workout?
Truly like schedule,
Schedule. Okay.
schedule it.
Yeah.
Um,
Put
I
it in your
think,
calendar.
yeah. And you know, it's sad because I see a lot of women who they want to work out. They know on some level that they need to be working out. And yet everything is an excuse. Oh, well, my kid has this activity.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, you know, I can't leave my baby with my husband for bedtime because he doesn't know the routine. And it's like, you have got to prioritize you. You turn around in 10 years, 20 years, and you're like, well, I still haven't exercised because I'm like bringing my kid to their high school activities. It's like, you have to figure this out. You're going to be at a massive deficit and a huge disadvantage, and you're going to be immensely frustrated when it comes to the time where you actually do decide to prioritize exercise. You know, it's doing it sooner rather than later, and just again making a priority, putting it into your day. It's like
Yeah.
eating your meals. Like that is how non-negotiable it is.
Yeah.
You need to be moving your body.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. I mean, this is basically my area. This is where I come in as a coach, and I'm like, these are the pillars of health, sleep, nutrition, movement. You have to make time for them. It doesn't have to be a ton of time, but you have to put it in there every single day. And it should be like brushing your teeth. It's just going to be there. It's what you do for yourself every single day, whether your kids are, sitting next to you, whether they're climbing on you, whether you're using them as a weight, it's got to happen. And
Exactly.
just like you make meals for your kids, you need to eat too, and you need to sleep. So it's
100%.
non-negotiable. So I mean, I think there really shouldn't even be any excuse, right? Put it in your calendar. It doesn't, even if it's every day that you're not like going to lift at the gym, go for a
Right.
walk, or
Right.
do something for yourself, even if it's like 5 push-ups, on the floor or something. Just any
Exactly.
type of movement. Just get out there and start moving. And
Yeah, like find a plan and stick to it. That's like and like if you fall off the bandwagon, get back on and like do it.
Yeah.
Don't get discouraged. Don't get in your own head about, oh, I can't do it now because I haven't done it for a week or I haven't done it for a month or whatever. Like you have to make it the priority.
Yeah.
I think some people like are okay with working out at home. I think it depends on, again, I think it depends on your plan, right? Because if it's like, oh, I have a treadmill and I have some 5-pound dumbbells in my basement, like that's not going to do it.
Yeah.
You need to like actually have a plan and you need to have some accountability. And again, whether that's like, there's so many apps out there that can help, with programs. Like there's like Ladder, that's a great option. There's like Train Heroic. We have True Coach. We have programs that we give to people, whether it's dumbbell program, kettlebell program, bodyweight program. Like there are so many resources out there that, can help just at least provide a plan for you.
Right.
That even if you're not working with a coach in person, you can still have that accountability of, just downloading this app to your phone and getting a program. Like they're not expensive,
Yeah.
and they don't take a million hours. It's just like, you just have to do it.
Yeah, there's so many options nowadays just to be able to, hold you accountable if you don't have a coach, or are not going to a gym. There's definitely a lot of options. I think you just have to kind of find what's going to excite you and make you want to work out every day. And I just think each time you do it, every day that you show up for that time that you scheduled, it's going to get easier and easier. And eventually you're going to crave it. It's like when you're like staring at the barbell being like, I really wish I could lift you. It's like, it's exciting. It's fun. It's not work. It's like, this makes me feel good. I feel strong. My body feels great after, and I know it's going to help me, in the future too. So
for sure.
I think that's great. All right, Nora, let me see if I have anything else for you. Where can we find you?
Okay, so you can find me on Instagram. My page is at Coach Nora Matthew. And then I also have the at her strength studio _ between each word. That is my business. And then you can check out my website, herstrength.studio. And if anyone wants to email me and ask me specific questions, my email is info@herstrength.studio.
Awesome. And what are the names of your 2 programs that you offer at the gym?
So we have PregnaFit, which is our pregnancy program. We have early postpartum, which is our postpartum class. And then our general small group custom training program is called Stronger You.
All right, awesome. So I'm going to link all of that below. Thank you so much for coming on here and talking with me today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Appreciate it.
For having me.
All right, I'll see you later.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Empowerhood is brought to you by Flourish Everyday Coaching. Check them out in the link below. And again, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. If you could take 60 seconds of your time and leave us an Apple review, this helps share the news about this podcast and help women all over the world. If you want to see the video version of this podcast, you can go to our YouTube channel and subscribe there. Thank you so much, and we'll see you at the next episode.